Welcome to The Megyn Kelly Show, your home for open, honest, and provocative conversations. Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to The Megyn Kelly Show. Today on the program, Adam Carolla, and he's got some things to say. We're going to be talking about COVID and the California shutdowns and Gavin Newsom's reversal. Is this guy going to be recalled? Is the pressure getting to him? As the California school teachers, their unions still refuse to go back into the classroom. We're going to talk to him about the New York Times firing a 45-year staffer. The guy was with them for 45 years. We'll get into why. And on AOC's performance art. Adam has got some thoughts, so stay tuned for him. But first, when you're running a business, HR can kill you, right? I mean, HR can fire you. Not if you're the boss necessarily. Anyway, I digress. But anyway, HR is a pain in the you-know-what. Wrongful termination suits, minimum wage requirements, labor regulations. No one wants to deal with all that red tape. It's just a hassle to understand. It goes on and on. And by the way, HR manager salaries are not cheap. An average of $70,000 a year. That's where Bambee comes in. Bambee. Bambee. It was created specifically for small businesses that do not want to deal with this stuff. You can get a dedicated HR manager, craft your HR policy, maintain your compliance, all for $99 a month. That's it. With Bambee, you can change HR from your biggest liability to your biggest strength. Your dedicated HR manager will be available by phone, email, or real-time chat. From onboarding, I do believe that's the weird HR term for hiring, to offboarding, terminations, they will customize your policies to fit your business and help you manage your employees day to day. That's good. You need like that filter between you and the employee you have to discipline, right? It's better if you don't have to say all the awful things face to face. Get the HR person to do it. That's why you're paying them the $99 a month. That's cheap, people. $99 a month is cheap. Month to month, the relationship is, so you don't like the person, you can get rid of them. No hidden fees and cancel anytime. And basically just let Bambee help you. You can get your free HR audit today where they take a look at your business, see what you need by going to Bambee.com/MK. Do it right now to schedule your free HR audit. That's Bambee.com/MK. Spell BAM to the BEE.com/MK. And now, Adam Carolla, author of I'm Your Emotional Support Animal, Navigating Our All Woke, No Joke Culture. That's an amazing title. And host of the Adam Carolla Show, which is now on its 3,000th episode. How about that? 3,000. This is episode 63. I don't know if I've got that much to say. I don't know how you keep the conversation going that long. But maybe I'll find out. We'll grow and we'll learn together as we listen now to Adam. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Good.
Feeling kind of happy about the Tom Brady win. I don't know. Seems like a nice guy. Seems like he works hard for it. He's easy to hate, but I kind of feel like he deserves it.
I agree. No, if you hate Tom Brady, you hate yourself for being lazy.
Exactly. Exactly right. First, let's talk about what's going on with COVID. Gavin Newsom last week, your governor, finally called for schools to reopen, even before every teacher has been vaccinated. And the teachers' unions, they're opposing. The teachers' union out there is opposing. The district superintendent out there in Southern California is saying the schools are just not going to reopen. They're not, unless, quote, teachers are protected. That's ambiguous. And now there's a real question about whether schools there, amongst other places, are ever going to reopen until we have complete herd immunity. What do you think?
Well, if you think about the way California rolls is they set up these arbitrary color-coded safety, purple, yellow, red, magenta, whatever. And then each one has a goal that's pretty much undoable. They have like an unreachable goal. Like, less than 7 people can be infected out of 2 million people in a 3-year period. And then they go, we haven't met our goal. Well, you set up an unrealistic goal, so it'd be like you saying to your kids or, me saying to my daughter, you can never go to Disneyland or outside after the street lights come on or ever spend money at fast food until you get 100% on 20 trigonometry tests in the row. And then at some point she'd do 17 in a row and she'd go, can we go to Disneyland? And I'd go, hey babe, rules are rules. We can't do it because I set up these very unrealistic goals. So California sets up crazy, unrealistic safety goals, and then we don't meet them. Teachers, when this whole thing is said and done, the teachers are going to look like mega cowards to me. Like in this world where we're calling people that work at Trader Joe's heroes and nurses heroes and firemen heroes and frontline, everyone's a hero. There has to be a GOAT, and the GOAT are teachers. They're not going back to work. First off, why aren't they essential workers? If garbage men and people who work at Trader Joe's and gas stations, if they're essential workers, how come teachers aren't essential workers? I thought children were our future. I thought this was the most important job. Remember 10 minutes ago, we were calling teachers heroes? Remember they're all heroes? What happened to the hero moniker? Right. They're hiding under their bed in the fetal position, hammering checks. They need to get back to work. And by the way, we don't need unions. It's the unions that are screwing this thing up.
Mm-hmm. That's what's so irritating is that number one, I think most teachers do want to teach. It is their unions that are stepping in. But number two, there are certainly some teachers, because we saw them doing their interpretive dance in Chicago. They're these young, able-bodied teachers leaping through the air in order to make clear that they could not possibly teach children. Like, wait, why? You're totally perfectly healthy and you're terrified you're going to get COVID in schools that have already prioritized you for the vaccine and sterilized the classrooms, etc. But the thing that really ticks me off is you got teachers like, we have a 65-year-old guy who's been teaching my fifth grader and his classmates for a year. He's fine. He took the risk. He's one of those people who could easily say, I'm going to stay at home. He didn't. He went, he understood. There's next to no chance of him getting it or transmitting it inside the classroom. And he did the right thing. And now we're supposed to look at these leapers, and say, why won't you keep them safe?
Well, it's so narcissistic. It's so insane. I'm not going back into the classroom until it's 100% safe for me. Crazy narcissism. And again, what if everyone who worked at a supermarket took on that same posture? But I've always had this bigger picture plan. Everyone says to me, what's going on with schools? What's happening with schools? And it's what are we teaching our kids at these schools? It's a little slice of socialism is the way I look at it. And first off, it's inhabited by people who don't want to go out and compete in the private sector, number one. So it's a self-selecting group of individuals. Number two, if you think about it, just think about you think about California, think about school teachers. If you think about COVID in a sort of political terms, the people on the right are the least worried about it, and the people who are on the left are the most worried about it, and the people that are furthest to the left are the teachers, and those are the teachers that are teaching your kid every day. So what kind of politics do you think your kids are getting by the super scared leftists who won't go back into a classroom? What else, pray tell, may they be teaching your kids about the 1619 Project or any of this? This is a tell. This is a tell for who they are and what their politics are.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And they've had to show their card because the actual governor of California is saying, go back to school. The city of San Francisco and city of LA are saying to their specific districts, go back, open up the schools. And they're refusing. San Francisco just had to sue its own school district to make them reopen. The district officials are refusing. And meantime, at the federal level, we've got Joe Biden. Remember, follow the science. I'm going to follow the science. Unlike President Trump, I will follow the science and I will listen to the experts. And the CDC comes out with this just devastating for that far left position report saying there's basically no evidence that you're going to get COVID in school, that schools have contributed in any meaningful way to community spread, and that all the data show it's much safer for the kids to be in school and it's perfectly safe for the children. And you know what happened after they said that? The White House was asked about it. Jen Psaki came out and said, well, the woman who said that, she was speaking in her personal capacity. Okay, it was the director of the CDC, and she was providing the guidance during a coronavirus task force briefing with reporters in her role as the head of the CDC. And now we're going to follow the science and listen to the experts, folks, are saying, oh, she was speaking in her personal capacity.
And by the way, what is personal capacity? I mean, when you're the head of the CDC or the spokesperson for the CDC, what does that even mean? Like, those are her own private thoughts that she shared. Like we stole her diary or something, or she's a Scientologist and she's giving us some of her own, homespun theories about life. Like, what does personal capacity mean when you're standing at a podium with CDC signage behind you? What does that mean? That's her own deeply held personal opinion about COVID-19. Like, what does that even mean?
It's a lie. And if we were back in the Trump era, it would be added to the list of like number of lies told by this White House. But no,
right.
Keep going.
Yeah. So Fauci, if he says something I disagree with, I can claim it's just his personal capacity he was speaking in. That was just pillow talk with him and his wife. It's a lame statement. It's nonsensical. She was speaking in her personal capacity. That doesn't even mean anything.
Right. It's a dodge by this, this new White House press office that was going to be so transparent. And, they're already lying to us and we know it. And the stakes are high. I know you've got 2 kids. I've got 3 kids. It really pisses me off because it's like we did a long report last week based on a New York Times in-depth piece talking about the suicide rate amongst these kids going up. The most recent CDC report found mental health related ER visits are up 31% for kids between 12 and 17, up 24% for kids between 5 and 11, who are like the opposite of super spreaders. You're not going to get COVID from a kid between 5 and 11. And they don't give a shit. They won't go back to school. The White House won't follow the science. And when the CDC director had a moment of honesty, the first response is personal capacity. Look over there.
Yeah, it's really it's interesting that numbers, computers, and statistics have actually pulled us further away from reality. Like, they're, in a way, teachers keeping kids at home and not going back is kind of statistically like Black Lives Matter, in the sense that they focus all of their energy on cops shooting unarmed Black men, which is statistically next to nothing. They focus none of their focus on Black men killing other Black men, which is statistically through the roof. And we're all supposed to just go along with it. Like we don't do math, like we can't look at a number or a spreadsheet. And the teacher thing's kind of the same thing. There is no statistical data that says it's dangerous for kids to go back into the classroom. There's now a bunch of statistical data saying it's very dangerous for them to stay home, with all the myriad of things that go along with that, substance abuse and mental stuff and physical abuse and all that. And yet we're just going to ignore that and let them sit home and rot. So the heroes who claim to have gotten into it because they love kids and they want to change their future are all, and by the way, this thing where it's like, well, it's not them, it's the unions. Then start piping up against your unions. Why don't you start pushing back against the unions? Like, isn't that what a hero would do?
Mm-hmm.
And why do we need these unions? The Biden administration wants to get rid of school choice. This seems like, so we want a monopoly with these idiots controlling our kids and controlling the state? That doesn't seem like a good plan for me. Get rid of charter schools and get rid of school choice and get rid of vouchers. Have an ever increasing number of unions and school teachers unions, and then have them just dictate policy in a state as big as California. That doesn't seem like a great plan to me. It seems like what they're doing now. Nobody wants it. So all the parents want their kids to go back to school. The governor wants the kids to go back to school. The mayor in Los Angeles wants the kids to go back to school, but the union, because of how big it is, says no. That makes sense
Right.
to anybody? And might we pump the brakes at this point and say, maybe there should be some alternatives to big unionized, federally funded schools?
Do we think there's any chance of that happening, given what, the size of Democratic donations the unions make?
Well, somebody's going to have to start talking about the fact that, it's so funny because I live in California and I live amongst these idiots. And when you say to them all the time, hey, the governor wants the schools open, it's statistically safe for the schools to open, the mayor wants the schools open, how come schools aren't open? They'll go like, I don't know. They have no connection to the unions and them funding the politicians. They cannot do that math.
Mm-hmm.
Or they won't do that math, or it's some sort of cognitive dissonance or something. Your people, Democrats, the people you're voting for, this is what they're doing. They're sacrificing kids. The mayor and the governor, they can give some lip service to it, but they can't actually make a move because they're scared of the unions who are funding them. And this is essentially payola. And it's perfectly fine for all the Democrats who live in California. I would say that's a hypocritical stance.
I mean, I would say, and I have said, you want to just say, that's fine. You don't want to teach, you're fired. It's no problem. That's the deal. Like, the reason you get the paycheck is because you do the teaching. And now that we're back open, if you're not going to show up, you're fired. But how can they do that when the unions control the slots that the teachers are in, and they're going to just say they can't backfill them? Like, the unions got them. They've got them right where they want them.
Well, haven't we agreed in our society that monopolies are bad? That sometimes you abuse your power when you're a monopoly. So we have a lot of laws to break up monopolies and to prevent monopolies. So why is it good for the school teachers union, who is a monopoly? Why is that? Why is that an okay monopoly? So you couldn't have a monopoly on automobiles or on tacos, but you could have one on teachers, and that works. This is, by the way, what happens when there's a monopoly. I'm living it in California. My kids are laying in their room right now because of the school teachers union monopoly. If we had alternatives, then they would just lose business and go away. If there were others who were competing against them, but they have a monopoly. So what is advantageous about a monopoly? We're calling it a union, but it's really a monopoly.
It's a good point. I mean, there was a time in our country's history where teachers felt they were being mistreated, and the only way they were going to get decent salaries and decent benefits was to bind together and work against, as a unit against the sort of the cities controlling all the purse strings. I don't think we're still there. And the free market has led to a lot of great schools that don't have to obey by these rules. And they're so threatened by how well they're working, things like charter schools and so on, that their solution is, as you point out, they must be shut down. It's not, we have to do better because they're coming for us. It's like, we could do better and learn from their example. It's, they need to go away. The competition needs to be eliminated.
Yeah. Well, what would you do if you were really bad at your job and you were lazy? Would you want to up your game, or would you want to get rid of the competition? So they're going to do what we let them do. And I don't think they're any different than any other entity. I don't see why GM wouldn't do it as well, or any other large, GE or any other large corporation. They'll do what we let them do. Unfortunately, California lets them do whatever they want to do, and this is the product. I mean, I'm living it right now. This is what happens when you have a Democratic supermajority. This is the product. And now Newsom, who's essentially been neutered, has to do two things. He has to say out of one side of his mouth, because there's so much pressure and there's a recall effort afoot, and people are hitting their boiling point at this point because the kids have been home for almost a year. My kids have been home almost a year, and according to the school teachers unions, by the time everyone's vaccinated and we get everyone back to the classroom, it'll be time for the summer break. There will be no school year this year. So Newsom has to pay his constituency lip service by saying, well, I'd like these schools to open, but he also can't do anything sweeping or dramatic or force anyone back into the classroom because unions are his bread and butter. So he just sits there pretending like he wants schools to open, but doing nothing about it.
And the scary thing is, you know, as we continue to put such blind faith, not we the country, but really the administration now, in Fauci, he's saying we may be dealing with this situation until the end of next school year, 21 into 22. I just think, at what point have the American people had enough? At what point is there actually just a collective middle finger? Like, if we have to have our classes in the middle of the park taught by a group of parents who's studied up on the latest, we're going to do it because this is such bullshit. How many years can they keep us locked in our apartments without teaching our children while still cashing all of our tax checks? You know, I mean, I do wonder, because we are Americans. The American spirit is a free spirit. We like our liberty a lot. And you can see even in a state like California, Adam, you know, you tell me, that's very blue. I feel like people there are reaching their boiling point. They've had it.
Well, you know, you can kind of judge if you live in California, you live in Los Angeles. At the beginning of the shutdown, there wasn't any traffic on the freeways. Now there's just as much traffic as there ever was, which means people are kind of voting with their feet. So the state is reopening whether the governor likes it or not, because people are just tired of it. And also, you can't cry wolf that many times before people just start heading back sort of into the town square. So essentially, that's what's happening. Unfortunately, there is no version of that with public schools where kids just start wandering onto campus and opening books. You know, that's going to take a decree. And the reality, Megyn, let me tell you the most disappointing part about this entire experiment that we've all been living through for the last year. I cannot believe how cowardly people are. I was reading a tweet that I sent out early in July saying teachers are heroes and cops are the bad guys, but cops are doing their jobs and the heroes, the teachers, won't go back to school. And of course, I always get attacked whenever I call the teachers cowards or whatever I do when I do. And it's the scariest part and most revelatory part about this whole thing is what lemming coward sheep everyone has turned out to be. They're attacking Dr. Drew. They're attacking me. They're attacking anybody who suggests lockdowns are hurting our society. They're hurting the kids. Kids are safe. Kids should be able to go back to school. This is affecting old people and people with pre-existing conditions. It's not killing healthy people. The insane part about this is how fast society turned on people that are championing the cause of freedom. That's the scary. I expected the government. Look, I expected Newsom to be a shit show. He's an idiot. I've interviewed the guy. He has a synapse problem, but he's really a dumb dude. Listen to him debate me. It's on YouTube somewhere. He cannot compete. And I have a junior college education. I was put on academic probation at a junior college, and Gavin Newsom can't keep up with me. So he's a dumb dude. I didn't expect anything from him. Our Mayor Garcetti is a flat out pussy. I didn't expect anything from that guy. He is a total puss. No problemo. What about the people? What about the comedians? Where are the voices? Who's pushing back? That's the disappointing part. It's not Newsom and Garcetti. I knew who they were. It's everyone else. What's wrong with everybody? Why is everyone is so scared to speak up or to say anything? Ugh. People are such cowards.
He's like a JFK figure. He's got the good hair, he's somewhat good looking. I remember when he was married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, they did this big spread where she had the flowing dress, and you could just tell they were sort of wannabes. They were kind of wannabes. And I think he's
Hmm.
still a wannabe, and he's good looking enough. It's very rare in a politician that he keeps getting elevated to the next position. And yet he clearly has no spine. And the recall thing is interesting because it wasn't until that started to get really more serious and start to look like it had some momentum behind it that he was like, you know what, let's open the schools. But the unions are standing their ground saying, screw you, no, make us. And now, his bluff has been called, and we'll see. I mean, do you think there's actually going to be a recall?
I think there is. It sounds like there is, and it'd be nice if there was. And to circle back to the disappointment, I think we've figured out that with enough social pressure, almost any entity will cave, right? And here's what I'm saying. If we went all out and pressured the unions to reopen the schools, if the LA Times was writing articles every day, if CNN was hitting it hard, if celebrities were tweeting, we would force them to do it. The point is none of those entities are doing any of that. And that's the sad part. I think we could shame the unions into opening the schools of California, but no celebrity, no comedian, no public figure, they're not going on record. And I don't know, where's the Los Angeles Times? Aren't we supposed to follow the science? What about the science? I thought it was all about following good. Good, then do your thing, Los Angeles Times. Instead of writing another op-ed piece about the dangers of hydroxychloroquine, why don't you attack the teachers union? Or are you on their side? See, this is the problem with the supermajority in California. The Los Angeles Times agrees with the teachers unions. They like the teachers unions. They are on the same side politically as the teachers union. So they're not going to do anything. Everyone should be rising up in unison and shaming those idiots into doing their jobs.
And they've leaned into their own fear.
They've leaned in their own fear.
There's the group that's genuinely gotten themselves terrified of COVID, even though if you are under the age of 70, you have over 99% chance of surviving COVID. But there's a group that's gotten themselves convinced it's like the plague. And, the media helps by playing up any case of somebody who didn't have a pre-existing condition and was young and died. I mean, they will play it up so that everybody knows who that person was. Where you could do the same thing with the flu. Every year, if you wanted to take somebody who was young and you didn't think was otherwise susceptible to death from getting the flu, many people do die of it. But because there is sort of a COVID porn need by the media, they'll take one case and really scare the hell out of people, and people walk away thinking they actually might die from this thing. So you got people who are genuinely fearful and they're not paying attention, or because they're just people who like drama in their lives and they lean into fear as a general matter. And then you got the people who know the truth, but they're fearful about getting mean tweets, right? About getting attacked, like you say, like Dr.
Right.
Drew or you, or, Dr. Atlas, who was at the White House, just got killed. Like any sort of unorthodox pushback is publicly shamed as you don't give a shit about grandma. And nobody wants to be accused of that. But we're at the point now where it's like, when the CDC is on your side, and just no one's listening to it, It's time to rise up. It's maybe time for an editorial.
Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting glimpse into the human psyche, which is they're so cowardly and so worried about the mob turning on them. They'll say almost anything and they'll repress almost any thought. And they don't really care about right and wrong and science and data and numbers. They'll just sheepishly go along with everyone because everyone, well, evidently, it's funny. They used to say like number one fear, snakes, number two, public speaking, number three, spiders. But it's really being shamed and pushed out of the village. Essentially, that must be the number one fear of all human beings. And maybe when they were talking about snakes and public speaking, they didn't have a modality for pushing everyone or shaming everyone in the public square like we do now with Twitter. But evidently that's almost every human being's greatest fear, because that's the only explanation for why everyone's going along with this.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, it's awesome if you're Amazon, and it's awesome if you're Gavin Newsom, because you have a whole bunch of these scared subjects just sheepishly going along with everything you tell them to do.
More with Adam in just one second. But first, it seems like every day, everywhere, practically everyone is connected on their devices, right? We don't look up anymore. We don't take in nature. We just look down at our screens. In fact, they say the average person was connected almost 7 hours a day last year, and 64% of adults admit that they take online risks out of convenience. Well, that's where Norton 360 with LifeLock steps in to be your friend. Because all that browsing, sharing, banking, and shopping, it may make your life easy, but it can also expose you to criminals, your personal information, and make you very vulnerable to a crime. There is a lot to your digital life that can put you at risk. That's why Norton 360 with LifeLock will make it easy to keep you safe. They will help keep it all safe with device security that helps block hackers from your devices, a VPN for online privacy, and LifeLock identity theft protection to help you keep what's yours, yours. No one can prevent every cybercrime or identity theft or monitor every single transaction at every business, but with the all-in-one protection of Norton 360 with LifeLock, you can be less worried about becoming another statistic. Save 25% or more off your first year at norton.com/MK. Okay, that's norton.com/MK to save 25% off. Why wouldn't you do it? Do it now. norton.com/MK. We saw the latest example in sort of that mob mentality, and there's the group that says nothing because they're afraid the mob will turn on them, and then there's the group that chooses to join the mob either because they're woke or what have you, or because they just want a virtue signal. I think there's a huge section of the population that joins these mobs because they think it's insurance. Like, I joined the mob. Remember? How could I
I know.
be somebody you want to cancel? Like I wanted Roseanne canceled, whatever it is, pick the latest controversy. But the one that was in the news recently was the New York Times pushed out its COVID reporter. I mean, this guy was their COVID reporter. His name is Don McNeil Jr., and he's been at the Times for 45 years. 45 years. I listen to him often. I listen to The Daily. That's their podcast over there. And it's left and it's fine. But I like different points of view coming into my, I like not just all right-wing stuff. And he's definitely a COVID panicker kind of guy, like in terms of his reporting, he's been jumping up and down. So of course the Times should love him. And he got forced out because it came out that in 2019, he was on some trip overseas with a bunch of teenagers, young teenagers. And it was like some educational thing. And he was asked at a dinner by a student whether he, McNeil, thought a classmate of hers should have been suspended for a video the kid made when she was 12, in which this kid used a racial slur, the N-word. And McNeil has now admitted that he asked the student telling him this story if the 12-year-old had called somebody else the slur or if she was rapping or quoting a book title. And he admits that he actually said the N-word when having this exchange, like when trying to quote, he was like, did she say? And he didn't say N-word, he said the word. In this context or in that context? This is why he's now been fired. His 45-year career is over because in quoting someone who used the N-word, he actually said it. Adam, the New York Times staff, to its credit, the New York Times originally said, look, it doesn't appear his intentions were hateful or malicious. And Dean Baquet was like, I'm not going to fire the guy. He's very sorry. Trust me. He'll never do it again. 150 staffers wrote a letter. F you. Intention is irrelevant. What matters is impact. All that matters is how the, quote, victims feel. And we got the stuff we've gotten so often over the past year of The speech itself was somehow violent, and everyone there was in pain. And we've been disrespected. Now they want a reinvestigation of the whole incident. They want an organizational study into how racial biases affect editorial decisions. The Times is on the knee. McNeil is out. And we've now gotten to the point officially where all that matters is not intention, but, quote, impact. And you can always find someone willing to say they've been negatively impacted by someone's alleged misstep.
Remember when the mayor of Oakland found all those hoops hanging from the trees at the park in Oakland and, of course, decided there were nooses, right?
Yes.
Then the black man who put all the hoops up said, I put them up for exercise. It's the way I exercise at the park, or people exercise at the park. And the mayor of Oakland said, I'm still going to call in the FBI and we're going to investigate it. It's a hate crime. Now, first off, you want to talk about a waste of taxpayers' money, number one. Number two, you're just admitting into a microphone you're a fucking imbecile, if that's what you said. If you're saying that into a microphone, you're saying I'm incompetent and inept. And I have no idea why we would want this person to run a major city. But either way, didn't we just get our answer? And isn't it all context and intent? And this is a big deal because it's a very interesting bigger point, which is so many young white people love rap music and are influenced by rap music and then repeat the lyrics and then get into trouble for repeating the lyrics, which is essentially an homage to the music that they're enjoying. And we see no difference. There's no difference between calling someone the N-word or repeating what someone else said. There's an absolute difference. It's night and day. It's insanity. And anyone who doesn't see that difference should be labeled an imbecile. And if you write for a newspaper and you're a reporter in any capacity and you don't know the difference and you don't know context, then you should be fired because you're incapable of doing your job. How would you, in fact, report on something if, in fact, whatever part of your brain that perceives context had somehow been destroyed with a soldering iron?
Well, you know what it does? The focus on impact instead of intent. It eliminates the ability to make mistakes. You're done.
Right.
Mistakes, no one gives a shit if it was a mistake. All they care about is that you did it. And no one can go through life like that. Especially when, if the impact, right, if your negative impact is being judged by today's standards where there are landmines everywhere, right? Like this one, yes, you should know that you shouldn't utter that word. I get that. I understand he was trying to do it to quote somebody, but whatever. It was a dumb thing to do. On a parallel lane to that story at the Times, there was another story about this guy. I think he's one of the producers of that podcast, The Daily, named Andy Mills. He was effectively forced out. He resigned, but he was effectively forced out because of, they said he had a Me Too movement, a Me Too moment at a different employer back in 2018, and it got dragged back up. And I was like, well, what was he accused of doing? I don't know. Like, I'm not sure why he didn't get booted out of his last organization. And I was looking and looking and looking. Basically, what he was accused of doing was he got drunk in a bar. He took a drink and dumped it on a woman's head and made flirtatious comments. All right. That is not worth you getting fired from your next job, right? From your next job.
Right.
That didn't even involve these colleagues, right? But because he was big on one of their most popular podcasts, and apparently, I don't know, they just thought he was getting a pass. They thought he was getting a pass. And he was also, I think, involved in the Caliphate podcast, which was completely undermined, and it turned out to be like false, and they had to take it down and all this stuff, and he didn't get fired. But the point is, the Times is now doing a couple of things, right? Like if you've had any misstep currently or in your past, even if you've atoned for it and paid for it, you're done. I don't know how we can live in this world.
Here's the problem is as far as I can tell. What the Times is doing is the Times creates, so here's the world we're living in. These, social justice warriors who are out telling everyone why they're immoral and why everything's problematic and why everything they do or did is evil or racist or homophobic or whatever it is. So the New York Times has deemed themselves the purveyor of morality. So of course you have to cleanse within your own ranks, because if you're going to announce that you are the new moral standard, you can't have anyone in your ranks that did anything at all. So it's going to be an internal cleansing and an external judging of the world. So how can you call Trump a misogynist every 10 minutes if there may be some misogyny lurking within your own ranks? So they're going to have to purge their own, which is now we're into some scary territory, right?
Absolutely terrifying. I'm thinking about the quicksand that we're all walking on. If this is a standard where you can't, the evolving standards of what's okay or what's offensive, you can't keep up with it. This year alone, they got rid of the name Redskins, as you know. The Cleveland Indians say they're getting rid of their name. And then just last Friday, there was an op-ed by some hysteric, Jamie Goodall was her name. I think it was a woman. Yeah. In the Washington Post had an op-ed saying Buccaneers has to go. Buccaneers is a celebration of piracy. She said it may seem like innocent fun and pride in a local culture, but there is danger in romanticizing ruthless cutthroats who created a crisis in world trade when they captured and plundered, Adam, thousands of ships on the Atlantic trade routes. Okay, so the Buccaneers, they're on shaky ground, and anybody who would defend the Buccaneers could potentially be on shaky ground as having a negative, quote, impact on someone like Jamie Goodall, some staff historian who's now decided to be the moral arbiter of us all. And it's like, I don't know. The other piece of it is impact on whom, right? Because Don McNeil.
Those days are gone. Yes.
Well, you tell me, because Don McNeil says that word, right? He says that word trying to quote somebody, and he's fired after 45 years at the Times. I just watched a Super Bowl where The Weeknd performed, who says that word every other line in some of his songs. To your point about the rap community, every other line. And I saw Cardi B in one of the commercials who says that word every other line in some of her songs, not to mention some other stuff. So, I mean, I get that those latter two people are black and Don McNeil is white, but it does beg the question, impact on whom?
Well, look, the part where there is some line you could draw through some sort of positive impact versus, them just controlling your life. Like the first time the whole Washington Redskins thing flared up and then died down about 10 years ago is because they went and did a survey of indigenous people or American Indians or whatever we're calling them. And they said they don't care. And that's why it went away the first time, because they were like, all right, the people who we're trying to save don't care, because they have bigger fish to fry than the Washington Redskins logo on the side of the helmet. They have real problems. And so that community is per capita probably worse off than any community in the United States. I think if you go to the community with the most problems and ask them about the most frivolous of their problems, then most of them are going to say, we're dealing with adolescent diabetes and poverty over here. We're not so interested in the Washington Redskins logo. So, and this thing where who does it affect? It affects nobody. None of this most of all of this doesn't affect most of the stuff we're talking about, I mean, circling back to the teachers, kids don't have COVID and they don't affect teachers. None of this affects most of the stuff we're talking about doesn't affect anybody. We're essentially out of problems. And whoever this idiot writer is writing about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, she is clearly out of problems. And anyone who agrees with her writing are out of problems as well. People with real problems aren't interested in this. And no, it affects nobody. They always do this thing where, like, it's dangerous or it says the wrong message. I was just reading a tweet that some idiot sent me an hour ago, and they were saying, like, because San Francisco's changing all the names of the schools from Lincoln to Washington, and you got to get, everything must go. This isn't, by the way, this is being sold under a false pretense. This, like, we have to go back and clear these mistakes up from the past because they're racist or they, make people feel in danger. That's all bullshit. This is just a purge. They're just purging. They're just getting rid of everything that was so that they can reshape the now and the future. This has nothing to do with Lincoln and nothing to do with Washington. This is just to do with getting rid of everything that came before so that they can now sculpt the narrative and sculpt the future. But some idiot tweeted me like, well, you don't think it's a good idea to get rid of those names? Like, what about the 9-year-old or the 9th grader who's in that group and the fear they feel walking into the school? It's like, what are you talking about? Does anyone no one I know, when they were in junior high, it even knew what the stupid name was of their school, what the person did or what they're involved with or anything. Why do you feel fear?
If you feel fear when you're walking into middle school, it's for reasons having nothing to do with the name of your school. We all felt it, and for good reason, not having to do with Abraham Lincoln.
And also the good news is, children in San Francisco, you don't have to feel fear walking into Lincoln Junior High because it's been shut down for a year because your teachers won't go back to work. So good. You feel fear at home.
You know how some parents pass that on, right? They're hysterical and they pass it on to their kids. It's like society's doing that right now to adults, whether it's COVID or, how aren't you stunned by the fact that it was 150 staffers who wrote the letter trying to kill this guy after 45 years at the Times? 45. They wanted his scalp and they got it. They're teaching the next generation.
Let me posit this. Think about it. So, 150 people wrote the letter. How many of those 150 were just scared to be cast out? They don't want to be wished out into the cornfield. This whole thing is, you can learn everything you want to learn by watching that Twilight Zone episode where that kid is going to wish everyone out in the cornfield. It's ironic because it's a kid wishing all the adults out in the cornfield. So that 45-year-old staffer was the adult and the kids wished him out in the cornfield. But when you're sitting in your cubicle at the Times and somebody brings by the letter to get this old timer shit can and wants you to sign it, what percentage of people really thought he needed to go versus didn't want to get wished out in a cornfield?
Mm-hmm. It's
this
so
is
true.
the dangerous. That's why these are dangerous times, because people are cowards. People, if you got if I got all those 150 Times staffers drunk and asked them if they really cared what this guy said when he said it or whether he should be dismissed, at least 144 of them would have said they don't care.
Some of them may have said, McNeil's an asshole. He's been an asshole for a long time. And that's the other concern.
Right.
You can't use stuff like this to get rid of somebody who you just don't like, but it's happening. For sure it's happening. And it's like back when we had due process, you would make sure that the target was not pretextual. You would make sure that there had been an actual, serious ethical misstep and like probe. Is there actually just an axe to grind about this guy here? Because we don't generally fire people after 45 years just for being, irascible. Now all it takes is a letter like this, and especially on an issue like race. I'm not excusing him uttering the word. It's just anything having to do with race. And I mean, that Times letter is like, please don't hurt us. Please don't hurt us.
Everyone looks at all this stuff like it's somehow progress. This is regress. This is not progress. We're not evolving. I've been saying for a long time, like all the people who are into like the progressive movement, it's like not all progress is good. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's good. Just because it's different than it was 10 years ago doesn't mean it's progress. There's a big, I think one of the things we're getting caught up in as a nation of like, look at us, we're moving forward. Like, look at us, we're moving forward. But are we moving in the right direction? And is this really progress? Is this a good thing? So will you be happy? Now you can rest easy when your kids enter the workforce. Is that how you should think now? Oh, thank God. Right. Oh, I'm going to sleep like a baby knowing my young son who likes to speak his mind is entering the workforce.
Right, because it's like we realize that all of you setting the rules are absolutely perfect and have never made a mistake and would never make a mistake. But what about your kids? Are you totally confident they're never going to misstep? And you know what? It's like 9 times out of 10, the people pushing this nonsense, they don't have kids. They're like young people looking for a cause. Yeah. They feel like they're part of the next civil rights movement, and they're not. But there is a purging going on, not just people getting fired or canceled, but like in the publishing world, you saw Josh Hawley, his book got canceled after the Capitol riot. Now Simon & Schuster, according to the latest report I read, is saying they're going to stop publishing Candace Owens.
Oh, really?
The woman who, like the one conservative editor at Hachette, has been fired. She was the one responsible for getting Don Jr.'s book published, and she just published Andy Ngo's book. She did like Corey Lewandowski, who, I can't stand Corey Lewandowski, but I wouldn't stop him from publishing a book. Newt Gingrich, stuff like, so anyway, she just got the official reasons, were some lame reasons, but there's a big write-up on how it's bullshit, right? Like everybody knows it's bullshit that Hachette, as soon as they fired her, was reassuring employees they'd learn the lessons of the Capitol riot. There'll be no more hate speech, no incitement, no false narratives in the books that they publish. And they're going to shift back now, Adam, to quote, think tank conservatives. Think tank conservatives. I mean, okay.
Yeah, they're think tank conservatives. Like when you watch CNN, when they think they want to have this sort of even-handed panel, whenever you hear Republican strategists, you always know, oh, that's not a real Republican. They're just going to get someone to get up there and talk a bunch of shit about Trump or whoever. But yeah, think tank conservative. I don't get why people put up with this. I don't get why more people don't talk about it. It's really insane. I mean, we're getting into publishing. I mean, we're literally getting into, we can't burn their books anymore because they don't exist because they won't publish them. Mm-hmm. We leapfrogged past book burning and that there's no product to burn.
It's so true. Well said. That's exactly right. No more tweets to bash because the tweets are not allowed anymore. No more violent rhetoric on Parler because Parler's gone. And by the way, just in case our audience didn't hear, the guy who came on the show, John Mates, the CEO of Parler, was fired last week. Fired. And we're trying to figure out exactly what the story was, the reports of that. Coming up in 1 minute, I'm going to ask Adam about the ladies of The View ganging up on Van Jones, who was in Adam's movie, No Safe Spaces, which everyone should go see. It's amazing. And we're going to have a little chat about AOC and whether she's a force for good. That's in 1 second. But first, insurance can be complicated, right? I mean, just the word insurance, you're like, oh, I don't want to do it. You can basically get this hassle off of your back by bringing in the Zebra. They were created to help you. When you use thezebra.com, insurance finally feels like it's in black and white. No more confusion, no more gray area, just honest rates from real companies. The Zebra is the nation's leading insurance comparison site, you see, for your home and car insurance. They can help you save money today by making it super simple to compare what's out there. So easy. You go to thezebra.com, you answer just a few questions to compare accurate insurance quotes for free. The Zebra will protect your personal information and make sure there's no hidden fees or surprises for you along the way. You can secure your insurance from thezebra.com very simply. Either do it over the phone from one of their licensed insurance agents, or just go to their website, like I said, thezebra.com. How much money can you save on car or home insurance? Visit thezebra.com/Kelly to find out. That's THEZEBRA.com/Kelly for insurance in black and white. More with Adam in just one second, but first, I'm going to bring you a feature we call Real Talk, where we just sort of kick around something that's on my mind or want to talk about something in the news or that's not in the news. And today, it's a story about my children. We woke up in the morning. I went out to the coffee maker and it was preset. It was like made. The grounds were in there. By the way, it was Black Rifle coffee. And all I had to do was hit brew, right? So I just figured Doug had done it. And I'm like, oh, thanks, babe. And he's like, oh, I didn't do it. I'm like, what do you mean I didn't do it? And Yardley, our 9-year-old, was like,